And then I believe you had reached out because of Puppy Head Start.
Yes.
But then, so with the puppies, when they need transport,
Yeah.
because they're potty training,
Yeah.
they inevitably will soil the kennel.
Yeah.
And then both ways. So then,
Yeah.
obviously, we can't wash them for you when we're
Yeah.
dropping them off. They get dirty and stuff like that. So, but once the puppy is potty trained, where they can hold it for like around 3 to 4 showers,
Yeah.
then they can start doing Puppy Head Start at the facility.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Would I know that one of my neighbors is actually, her puppy's in puppy school right now.
Is it Chef?
Laylee.
Laylee, yeah,
Laylee,
yeah.
and I live like right next to her. I live very close to Humboldt. Like I'm in Humboldt Park.
Yeah, yeah.
Would that still like qualify for whenever he's ready for the
It should.
transportation? Okay.
That's I can check with Elizabeth, who's my wife.
Okay.
She's the one that does the transport stuff.
Okay, cool.
But as long as it's within the Logan Square area, as far as I know, yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay, I do live pretty close to Logan.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think because they had asked, because we've had a few people want to send the puppies the Puppy Head Start to transport, and then I feel like Elizabeth did check and she said yes. It was just that the puppy was too young.
Okay, cool.
That was pretty much the
Awesome.
only thing. So you're looking to kind of go the whole, like you want off-leash training and everything like that.
That's my goal. I think I have another dog. She's an adult dog, but she's a rescue, and so I want to be able to get them to a point where I can walk them together. And I don't know where she'll be because I'm currently kind of working with general leash training with her.
Yep.
She's a little like reactive when it comes to seeing dogs,
Okay.
and like sometimes squirrels and pigeons. She's very friendly, but I don't walk them together because I also don't want him to pick up the habit of like lunging and stuff.
The other dog reactive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, friendly but still reactive.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I kind of want to see how the pacing goes. I eventually would love to get him off leash or on like an e-collar.
Okay.
The other one's very, very sensitive, so I'm been like very hesitant to like
How old
even
is the
think
other dog?
about. She's gonna be 5.
Okay. No.
But yeah, like she originally was taken from her home because of abuse and neglect. So I feel like her background like makes me a little hesitant to like do much with. So I've always kind of let her do her own thing. Like she's generally well-mannered, very, very relaxed. It's just that whenever she gets kind of excited, and I'm just trying to avoid passing that on to him as best I can, because I think that he's going to be a little bit more of a handful.
Sure. So I've come across this before.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't matter for e-collar.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because
Okay.
usually it's the guilt factor.
Yeah.
Right? So here's an example. I had a Doberman that I trained,
Yeah.
like in 2019, 2020. No, that's like no.
Hey,
2016,
that's not your
2017.
bag.
She was a while ago. Her name was Princess.
Uh-huh.
Her name was Adobe. She came from an environment of abuse, and we know this for a fact because she had scarring from stab wounds and bullet holes. Okay.
Yeah.
And then she had issues with people. So when she got rescued in the rehome to my client Albert, he's like, I can't have people come over. You know, this is her background, this and that.
Yeah.
And then we did e-collar training, whatever.
Yeah.
And now she's like super sweet. She loves kids. She loves people, all that stuff. And she came from a legitimately like abusive background.
Yeah.
I also get cases where the assumption is there's an abusive background.
Yeah.
Because of things the dog does, and I'll tell people like that could also just be genetics. Like there's
Yeah.
no, unless you know for a fact.
Yeah, for hers there was like a court mandated like
Sure.
rescue.
Yeah, yeah.
But she like does pretty well. I think her tolerance has definitely gotten better over time, and like she's gotten more comfortable. Before him, like last year, I tried rescuing another adult dog. I had a Doberman, and I worked with Downtown Dogs and got that dog. Like I did their program, and I ended up being the one to kind of like train the dog. And I was able to get her on an e-collar like successfully, but it ended up not being a good match. Because they just never really got to a point of like comfort together.
Okay.
And so I ended up being more like
You and the other dog.
No, the other dog and my current dog,
Okay.
Moose. Yeah. So I ended up being more of like a foster for her, and worked with a shelter to find her a home.
Sure.
But that's the only type of exposure I've had to.
see.
So I have like a general idea of like the progression. Like for example, my other dog Moose, like she understands the concept of leash pressure.
Sure.
But I haven't
But like
progressed to a
or
prong.
slip? Okay.
Yeah, I
Just
haven't done
general
that.
leash pressure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
sure.
I use a slip for that kind of like training.
Sure.
But I haven't like progressed that. I think I don't feel confident doing that on my own. Like it was nice to have somebody go, no, this is like, it's not too tight. Like this is kind of what you do.
Sure.
Like kind of calibrate things for me.
Yep.
So yeah,
Okay.
that's like the general background, but.
Sure. So, few things.
Yeah.
Right. One thing is, if you wanted to work both dogs, right? Because I start remote work on puppies at 6 months. At 6 months, you can train a puppy to an adult skill, to have them off leash, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You can technically start remote collar as young as 2 months. The issue is most people tend not to be comfortable with the concept of putting a remote collar on their puppy because of what they think of the tool.
Yeah.
But the thing that we want to understand is that dogs nip and bite their puppies as young as 3 to 4 weeks in the litter.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're giving physical consequence almost immediately after they're born.
Yeah.
But people don't think that way, right? So if you think of the e-collar as kind of like a nip or bite on a button, right? Which is why when conditioned and layered in correctly, you absolutely can. It's just most people emotionally aren't comfortable with it, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is at 6 months, the puppy has driven them crazy enough where they're like, okay, I need something that works because I've tried all these other things.
Yeah.
And then they're willing to accept remote work at that point.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you ever changed your mind and you wanted to work both the dogs with remote work,
Yeah.
you could save yourself money by simply doing a program and we work both dogs at the same time.
Okay.
Okay, so just so you know, my programs aren't per dog.
Okay.
My program is you paid for my time, I show up and I go, what would you like to cover today?
Yeah.
So like I had a client who had 4 dogs at one point, and he didn't pay me. It would have been nice if he paid me for the program. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But what he did is he bought extensions.
Yeah.
The time extension is cheaper because I'm already there.
Yeah.
Right? And then we spent 30 minutes with one dog, 30 minutes with another dog, 30 minutes with another dog, 30 minutes with another dog. So I trained all 4 at the same time. Right?
Okay.
So this is something you can think about, obviously, because you have plenty of time.
Yeah.
But if you ever decide, like, you know what, I would like to see if I can get my dog's reactivity to a better place.
Yeah.
Have these guys on the same page, right? Because when you have both dogs trained to the same degree, life is so much more easier.
Yeah.
Because you don't have different tiers.
Yeah.
Right? It would be cheaper because I would just say buy one program, extend a couple of classes so we have time to work with each dog equally.
Yeah.
And then there's typically a point in the program where I go, okay, we don't need an hour and a half anymore. All we need is an hour. Okay.
Okay.
That's just FYI for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Because then also there are systems that it's one remote to 2 dogs.
Okay.
So if you bought, let's say you trained this dog on
Yeah.
e-collar and you thought, I'm only going to do this dog with e-collar, right?
Yeah.
You buy a 1 dog system. And then you go, you know what, this is really good. I'd like to train my other dog on e-collar.
Yeah.
Now you either have to buy a whole separate system or a whole separate 2 dog system.
Gotcha.
Right? So that's even more expensive than if you would have just bought a 2 dog system from the get-go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is really just stuff for you to think about. And there's even some models where it's a remote and a collar, but you can expand it to a second collar.
Okay.
So this way, in the future, if you ever did change your mind, all you need to invest in is that second dog collar.
Yeah.
And now you have a 2 dog system without having to spend another $300.
Yeah.
Okay.
That actually, like, my ultimate dream would to have both of them e-collar train, because I don't know, I run under the philosophy that the more structure there is, the more freedom they get.
Yes.
And
100%.
you know, like, I want to be able to bring them places without having to like worry too much about it and then end up like leaving one at home.
Correct.
Because I'm very active, like I love taking them out. I would love for them to be able to like run in a field and I have a level of like, okay, I know that if something were to happen, like I can draw them back. And like while I do wish, you know, in a perfect world that like just like vocal recall would be enough, I feel like I'll never get to a point in living in a city where I'm comfortable having them fully without anything.
Yeah.
Like that, because there are just way too many variables.
That's correct.
And I think like, yeah, if you live in a rural place, there's like fewer chances of things going wrong. Like here, there's hazards everywhere.
That's correct.
So yeah, no, that's definitely like, I'm very interested in doing kind of a program with both of them, because I think ultimately that aligns with my goals a little bit better.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, so all of that is exactly what I tell my clients.
Yeah.
Okay. So with more control, you get more freedom.
Yeah.
Right. I specialize in aggression and reactivity. It's what I built my career on. I get a lot of clients that their dogs are so reactive that they can't walk them in peace.
Yeah.
You know, they're going at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're taking the stairs instead of the elevator, all these things, right?
Yeah.
And then I come in, we do the training, and then their life is made so much better, not only for themselves, but for their dog, because
Yeah.
now the dog is no longer being withdrawn from the
Yeah.
world. I understand why they're doing it. but then it creates a feedback loop because they're withdrawing the dog because the dog's reactivity is so bad.
Yeah.
But then the dog is becoming more antisocial because they're being withdrawn.
Yeah.
Right? And it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So post the training, clients get on the elevator. They can let their dogs be off leash, pending they have the confidence. There's more to it, which I'll cover. But ultimately, you don't know how many times I hear like, you know what, Jesse, I love walking my dog now because I don't have to worry about the reactivity anymore. Now my dog's getting so much more activity. You know, yes, that's how that's supposed to work. Okay?
Yeah.
So her background doesn't matter, sensitivity doesn't matter.
Okay.
I've had dogs that seemed and are super soft, but are very resilient to the collar.
Okay.
Okay. So a dog, for example, if you scold them, could be super soft to scolding, but then super tough to e-collar. And I can get dogs that are super tough to scolding, but very sensitive to e-collar.
Okay.
There's no concrete way of how it works. You don't know until you're in the situation.
Yeah.
And then how the dog responds tells you what your dog's personality type is.
Yeah.
But we work through it all.
Gotcha.
Okay? Because like let's say your dog is super sensitive.
Yeah.
And she starts to shut down. Okay. Shutdown is when the dog does this. You'll see the collar pulsating and they don't want to do anything. Okay. Human instinct goes, this is making my dog shut down. That's not good. I want to stop it.
Yeah.
What your dog learns is if I shut down, the thing I don't like disappears. And now you have a problem. Okay?
Yeah.
So what we do is we have to use the pressure, which is remote collar, to override the shutdown.
Yeah.
So the dog goes, shutting down isn't helping because this is becoming increasingly worse.
Yeah.
Eventually they'll break from shutdown and they'll start moving. And then they realize, oh, I try to resist this. I try to escape it. I try to shut down. It could continue to go up. Eventually, I decided to move forward, and when I moved forward, it disappeared.
Yeah.
So the dog realizes, oh, moving with the pressure, not against the pressure, is actually what gets me what I want, which is turn off.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in order to create reliable obedience, what people tend not to account for is emergency situations, right? Like you said, the variables in life that you just can't account for, right?
Yeah.
I've had it actually happen here. I've used the story like 3 times today. I had a client, I off-leash trained her dog.
Yeah.
She was playing fetch. Her dog was social, but that day she just wanted to play fetch with her.
Yeah.
She's over here, and this guy just invited his lab to play with her dog, right? Her dog and the lab go for the ball at the same time. What do you think happened?
One of them got protective over it.
They got in a fight
Yeah.
instantaneously because they both went for the ball at the same time.
Yeah.
So then we got a dog fight. My client ended up having to max out the collar, 127 continuous, which is the harshest level correction you can give.
Yeah.
Her dog yelped, but bolted right out of the fight.
Yeah.
And came back to her. So she called me right after. She was crying, and she explained what happened. And she's like, please, you know, I hope I didn't ruin the training or anything. I said, no. I said, it was an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Had you not done that, the fight would have continued, and who knows what would have happened afterwards, right? Like, now you have vet bills and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, it sucks that your dog had to be corrected for somebody else's poor decision.
Yeah.
I was like, but that is what you need to do to prevent the situation.
Absolutely.
Right? So if we have a dog that is resisting the collar for whatever reason, they try to run from it, they're doing flight response, they're trying to shut down or whatever, if we don't push through all that, and then one day the client finds himself in a situation like that, it's much less likely they're gonna be successful because they never forced the dog to just do it.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's a whole process, there's a whole methodology, there's a whole logical approach. It's not like I come in and I go, all right, go to 100. We start low and we gradually work our way up, and the dog will decide, okay, now I need to do something about it.
Yeah, like what level they're willing to start working at. Yeah.
And I help you figure all that stuff out.
Yeah.
I don't need to touch the dog, so you would show up with your dog and I coach you through everything.
Yeah.
So like if your dog had a reactive moment during the class, I'd coach you through the reactivity in real time during the class. Okay. So that's just kind of going off on a tangent with that stuff.
Yeah.
I know for now we're talking about the puppy. But here with these guys, at this stage, what you're doing is good. Okay. It's real basic foundational stuff. It's really just trying to prevent behaviors like separation anxiety, leash reactivity. It's crate training, it's potty training, getting them used to being independent of you and all that stuff. Is usually what I recommend for my clients with the puppies under 6 months. If you go on YouTube and you search, how do I teach my puppy to sit? How do I teach my puppy to down? And it's all positive clicker-based training, you're not going to screw up your puppy. Okay. Once the puppy is potty trained, and you do puppy head start, we do the same thing. So puppy head start, do you know what it's for? The intention of it?
I guess like a level of structure in a day.
There's structure. It's really centered around trying to socialize your puppy, and those same things: crate training, potty training.
Yeah.
You know, if we see any behaviors, correcting the behaviors so they don't stem into bigger behaviors.
Yeah.
Right? And then we do real simple positive reinforcement-based training with clicker.
Yeah.
Sit, stay, stuff. Like nothing substantial. It's
Yeah.
like it's just there to get the puppy to start using their brain.
Yeah.
Right? But if a puppy is already potty trained, right? And a client wants to do puppy head start, like I would tell them, like, well, your dog's already potty trained, which is really the sole intention of puppy head start.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, you could, but the only thing your dog would really benefit from is like the little 15-minute training sessions that they do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So the puppy head start is meant for like, oh, I work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave my puppy in a crate all day, or I don't want to pay for like 3 different dog walkers.
Yeah.
Is that we put them on a schedule. It's usually a 2-hour schedule for like the 2-month-old puppies or whatever.
Yeah.
3 hours of the 3 months, so on and so forth. And then we just kind of establish a structure so that when the owner has their dog, they would ideally be repeating that same kind of, or reinforcing that same every 2-hour structure, whatever, for the potty breaks.
Okay.
And then over the course of time, we're kind of working as a team to get the dog or puppy to be potty trained.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because most daycares, if you drop your puppy off, it's unregulated. So
Yeah.
they're peeing and pooping randomly throughout the day.
Yeah.
So when you pick them up, they go home, and then they're peeing and pooping randomly.
Yeah, it's almost like reinforced that they can just go anywhere.
So Puppy Head Start, I created it to help clients potty train their puppy
Yeah.
with what we would actually teach. So when I used
Yeah.
to do one-on-ones with puppies, because I don't really do that anymore, is clients were like, my puppy pees all over the place,
Yeah.
I need to potty train them. I would give them the structure every 2 hours, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
all that stuff, right? And then they would do the work. Now with Puppy Head Start, it helps the client do that. So when they're at daycare, they're not peeing and pooping randomly.
Totally.
Okay.
Okay.
But for a puppy under 6 months, you can start basic leash manner stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to mean anything.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I have a general fear of if I do too many wrong things, then I'm like kind of screwed.
Sure.
But like in terms of training him, especially as a border collie, it's been like pretty easy. Like he's better at recall than my adult dog. Like can sit, he can go down, he can touch, like, and with the potty training thing, my job is pretty flexible where like I bring him to work, and I take him out like every 2 hours.
Oh, nice.
We've been like gradually increasing the time. Like he slept through the night last night, which is like the second time he's done that, which is like a big win for me.
How long have you had him for?
2 weeks.
Okay.
And so like, I feel good that at least like it seems like I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, I can tell. Like when I saw your email and stuff,
Yeah.
and I read through it real quick. I was like, okay, this is a person that's obviously being proactive about
Yeah.
doing everything correct. What I always tell everybody is don't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
Do your best.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say this puppy did develop leash reactivity issues.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay.
It can be addressed.
Okay.
Right. So my whole thing is usually I come in after the fact
Yeah.
to fix things. But you know, if like I have people that live close to my facility,
Yeah.
and we get the puppies and we see the behaviors early on.
Yeah.
So like I have a Malinois puppy right now that we're training as a puppy board and train,
Yeah.
and he's clearly insecure. He's clearly nervous.
Yeah.
He's antisocial to a degree. So we've been really pressing those things because we're getting them early.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not to say that once we return them to the owner that the problems are fixed, because
Yeah.
then they have to continue everything and push everything.
Mhm.
Okay. So for the puppies or for like leash reactivity stuff, it's not like, oh my God, my dog's leash reactive, there's never a solution for this. Like I've come in before the problem and fixed, help prevent it from happening.
Mhm.
I've come in post the problem and address the behavior or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So the reason why I say leash walking stuff doesn't really matter right now is everything that you're seeing is pretty standard for puppy.
Yeah.
They seem very attentive and like, oh yeah, they're doing really good. And then they turn 6 months old. Okay.
Okay.
And at 6 months old, expect it all to go out the window.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why for puppies under 6 months, I tell people it's kindergarten right now.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, it's going to go out the window.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason is puppies have, or dogs have, 3 pivotal psychological shifts in their life.
Okay.
6 months, a year, 2 years.
Mhm.
At 6 months, are you familiar with kids and like development stuff?
Vaguely.
Have you ever heard of the terrible twos?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Think of 6 months as terrible two's brain,
Yeah.
teenager body. At a year, you have teenager brain, adult body. At 2 years, you have adult duck.
Ah. Yeah. Okay.
So that's what happens is right now you have a puppy, so he's like, oh yeah, mom, I'll give you all my attention. But then when he's 6 months, all of a sudden he's like, oh look, in the world we have squirrels, we have all these other stimuli.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, all those treats you have in your pouch are no longer that valuable.
Yeah.
Because I really want to engage with all of this now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying don't do any training. Just don't expect it to stick long term.
Okay.
So that's why there's more advanced tools,
Yeah.
right? Because we have clicker-based training, positive reinforcement. We have like a gentle leader, which is technically positive reinforcement. There's like slip lead. There's a prong collar. There's no worries. There's remote collar, right?
Yeah.
And then there's everything in between.
Yeah.
So they each have a ceiling. Gentle leader and prong collar would have the low. Well, gentle leader would be slightly below prong, but they have the lowest ceiling. And then e-collar would have the highest ceiling.
Yeah.
Because on or off leash, I always have the capacity to communicate with the dog.
Yeah.
But with prong collar or gentle leader, the moment you take off the leash, the dog goes, you no longer have physical communication with me anymore. And then they learn that they can press the boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of that is standard. I had a client, they had a German Shepherd. Her name was Peaches. They got her from Georgia. Is that the peach state?
Yeah.
And she was super quiet. Super quiet, super gentle, super just passive puppy, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, Jesse, we got this great puppy. She's so quiet. She doesn't bark, this and that. And I said, wait till she's 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. At the time, I was doing private puppy.
Yeah.
It was like a 6-week program. They finished, and I said, you know, if you ever need anything else, let me know. Advanced training after 6 months. They call me after 6 months, and they go, Jesse, you were right. She barks at everything now.
Yeah.
And I go, no worries. And then they went on to do big girl training with remote collar.
Yeah.
And then we fixed everything. No big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, because it happens where when people get their puppies, that they go, oh, the puppy's so good. I go, right, for now.
Yeah.
But as they start to mature, and you get like just like with kids, like when I was a teenager, like you start to push the boundaries and stuff like that, be a little rebellious. It's natural.
Yeah.
Same thing happens with dogs.
Okay.
Okay. So, but definitely when you're doing the food stuff, essentially what you're doing is you're teaching her how to use. It's a she, right?
A little boy.
Little boy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're teaching him how to use that brain, how to problem solve.
Yeah.
Right. You're teaching him body mechanics, like like it sounds dumb, but a lot of times dogs don't know how to walk backwards. Right. Until you teach them, and then when you teach them,
He could barely walk forwards. When I first got him, like tripping over his own feet.
Yeah. So like right now he's learning body mechanics.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I do is just like, roll over, and it looks cute, but really I'm teaching the dog like how their body works.
Yeah.
That's really the intention of anything under 6 months.
Yeah.
It's super simple. Again, it's that potty training and pay training, separation anxiety, and then if the dog has any antisocial quirks, trying to socialize them correctly so that we can ideally prevent that from happening or escalating.
Yeah.
Okay. Question on any of that stuff so far?
I guess maybe I'm getting ahead of myself and thinking about like how to structure it. I'm wondering if working with my mother dog first would make more sense, and then working with him when he's 6 months, because I think that like my job allows me a level of flexibility to like get him potty trained, and I've been making a really intentional effort to like socialize him with people and with also dogs, like letting him say hi. I don't let him like do too much because he's still getting his vaccines and stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just like thinking out loud right now.
No, you're fine. So like when it comes to puppy socialization before vaccinations, because at my facility we're very cautious.
Yeah.
We'll socialize the puppies with other puppies that are like the same. Admittedly, we don't get a ton of puppies.
Yeah.
Because I get more serious dogs.
Yeah.
That's what I'm known for. Okay. So when we do get puppies, like we have Laeli and we have Chef right now.
Yeah.
And then we have a third. We have Michael.
Yeah.
It's funny because his dad's name is Michael too. So
That's Junior.
Yeah. I said the same thing. They're the puppies that we have right now.
Okay.
Right. So like Chef and Laeli, like Chef was super antisocial when we got him.
Yeah.
And then now he's built up a lot of confidence because so the benefit in his case was that the owners were babying him too much.
Yeah.
And like the lady came the first day carrying him, and I was like, yeah, put that puppy on the ground. He needs to walk, right?
Yeah.
And then I tried to walk him, and he didn't know how to walk.
Yeah.
So that's what we worked on. And then I told him, like, walk your puppy, don't carry your puppy.
Yeah.
And then leaving him for daycare, because they picked him up like 3 hours later. I'm like, leave him for a day. He needs to be away from you. He needs to be independent. He needs to be just taught how to be by himself in a foreign environment.
Yeah.
And he's gained so much confidence from it.
Yeah.
In your case, what I would do is, if you have friends that have dogs and okay, these dogs are, they're not sick or whatever, those are the dogs you can target for socialization stuff, okay? And then once he's fully vaccinated, then you have a little bit more freedom to go beyond that bubble, okay? There's also benefit to sometimes not taking your dog out every 2 hours or always having them with you, because then you can also just develop that, the dog can develop a dependency.
Yeah.
That's the separation anxiety thing,
Yeah.
okay? So it's a balance of, okay, puppy, be away from me for 5 hours, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And then there's, okay, we're together for X amount of time and I'm taking you out every 2 hours, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, completely up to you. The other thing you could do is if you know you want to train both dogs,
Yeah.
depending on how much you want to cover, like you could do a 12-week program.
Yeah.
And then you train your other dog and you use 6 classes. And then
Yeah.
you go, I'll be back when my puppy is 6 months. And then you train the puppy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like if you do a 6-week program, which you can, and a separate 6-week program, we don't prorate the difference.
Okay.
You would be paying the cost for each respective program.
Okay.
So it's if you do 12 up front, you get a cheaper per class rate.
Okay.
Because you're saying, I want you for 12 hours, right?
Yeah.
So you get the discounted rate per lesson, but you
Yeah.
can split it amongst 2 dogs.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem. Like I said, you pay for it, I show up, you have my time, what would you like to work on?
Yeah.
Okay? Let's say you did that and for whatever reason you're like, hey Jesse, I know I wanted to do 6 and 6, but I actually need you for another class for my older dog.
Yeah.
I go, sure, I don't care. I just show up and I go, what are we working on today?
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
That would give you the most bang for your buck.
Okay.
Okay? I'm happy to take them, once the potty training and all that stuff and you can ride in the van, no problem. But I think if you know you're already wanting this dog to be off-leash trained,
Yeah.
I would just say take that money and then just save it and invest it when the dog's old enough because you're
Yeah.
going to get the most value
Okay.
out of it. Like right now it's super simple stuff and it already
Yeah.
sounds like you're like on the right track.
Yeah.
Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that that's what I would want to do because then that gives me like a good opportunity to like work with the other dog as well.
Mhm.
And just so I don't have to like, I don't want to, I guess it's just like, I don't have to put that off and like wait to train her
this one.
before him. Like almost maybe like having her established a little bit before he even gets started would
It
be
makes
like
your work
easier.
easier.
Yeah, I think that would be easier. Because then during this time that I'm waiting for him to get to like that age, she's just like an easier dog to have too. When I got her, her separation anxiety was so bad. So that was like the major behavioral thing that I worked through with her, but it took 8 months for her to be confident by herself. So that was something I was so like keen on with him, where I make him take naps throughout the day, but then I'll also like leave him, take my other dog out so that he doesn't even like rely on having her there. It's just like he can feel safe.
Yes, that happens too.
Yeah.
Separation anxiety between dogs does happen.
And so I'm like just trying my best to get him to a place so he can like stay in his crate, like he's pretty comfortable. And yeah, I think that working with my other dog Moose would be great, like doing the 12 package
Sure.
and just
splitting
doing it
it
like
up.
that.
Absolutely. I had a problem with that.
That would be
So,
amazing.
What I would recommend, and then Tina will send you all the information,
Yeah.
is I believe for the 2-dog system, you don't have to commit to buying one remote to 2 collars right away.
Uh-huh.
I think you can do it piecemeal.
Okay.
Meaning you can buy the remote and the collar, but I don't think it comes as a system. I'd have to check for you.
Okay.
Because, so, what breed is your other dog? I'm sorry?
She's kind of a mix. I did a DNA test on her and she looks very similar to him. So border collie with some pit bull and husky in her,
How much does she weigh?
like 40 pounds.
Okay. So what I would recommend is there's different output levels for the collars.
Uh-huh.
So you can think of like there's a collar that's meant for like a 5-pound dog.
Yeah.
There's a collar meant for a 35-pound dog and under, 70-pound dog and under,
Yeah.
70-pound dog and over. Okay. Is if I'm dealing with any kind of behavioral issue or pity mix, I always tell people opt for the higher powered collar.
Okay.
It's perfectly safe to use.
Yeah.
I could put it on my 8-pound Chihuahua. It's perfectly fine. All it
Right.
means is you get more from less.
Okay.
Okay. So on a lower powered collar, 60 could be like 30 on the higher powered collar.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you just get that much more output from it. And the reason why I recommend it is when we think about remote collar, I have to account for the size of the dog. So you said 40 pounds.
Yeah.
This kind of coat in terms of length and thickness,
She's like fluffier.
fluffier.
Yeah.
We got a thicker coat.
Yeah.
We have leash reactivity.
Yeah.
Right. We have the fact that she has some pit in her.
Yeah.
The reason why that's important is anytime I've had a dog override the collar, it's almost always been some kind of pit mix.
Gotcha.
Okay. And I love pits. I have a pit.
Yeah.
But they were bred to withstand.
Yeah, she's sturdy.
Yes. Okay. So that's what we have to account for.
Yeah.
So that collar is safe for both of them.
Okay.
So they last for years, so it's an investment. But you're gonna like my first batch of collars I had them for 10 years.
Yeah.
Before finally they just crapped out, and it's like, all right, I gotta
Yeah.
upgrade, get new ones or whatever.
Yeah.
The system and in its entirety, and Maria will confirm, Tina will confirm this. I believe it's like maybe 430 to 440 ish.
Okay, that's fine.
As an upfront hold for the system. Otherwise, if you get it piecemeal, you'll probably expect to pay around 340 to 50-ish upfront. Okay. But then you'd have to buy the second collar in the future, and then that separate might be like 120-ish. It might be a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
Because you're buying them separately.
Yeah.
Okay. But she'll send you the pricing.
Okay.
And then when it comes to how the training progresses, almost always the first thing that we cover is heel.
Yeah.
Because leash pulling and leash reactivity are the two most common things that I see.
Yeah.
And the two most common things that people want to address.
Yeah.
Right? So heel is the foundation for addressing all those things.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first class, like we show up here, this is typically right train.
Yeah.
So the client that I just had right now, you may have seen her leaving with her dog. Her dog was actually leash reactive last class. She said last week was her first class, this was her second class. I think she said she only saw one moment of reactivity, whereas before it used to be every single walk.
Yeah, her dog was great.
I know, just walk right by. Easy case,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes it's like that. In other cases, it's a process.
Yeah.
Okay. But the first class is always heel. I give you your homework. You come back class 2. Okay. You give me feedback.
Yeah.
What's working, what's not working. Did we see any changes in reactivity?
Yeah.
With that feedback, I then work on part 2.
Okay.
We do some more stuff. I give you your homework. You come back class 3.
Yeah.
Okay. If for whatever reason you're like, hey Jesse, she's doing good with reactivity, but she's still struggling, then we can do a class where we're targeting the reactivity, really just focusing on it.
Okay.
Once you understand how to address reactivity, it's simply finding what is the number that's going to get your dog to stop.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it ends up being a more difficult case, what I usually recommend is I'll tell the clients, you know everything you need to know. You need to now go through all the motions to figure out what's going to work.
Yeah.
Okay. As I'll tell them, don't book class 4 until we get the reactivity resolved.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, they'll have me as a resource via email.
Yeah.
And they'll say, hey Jesse, I tried this and this, it didn't work. And I'll say, try this instead.
Yeah.
I'll try that. Does it work? If it doesn't, try this instead. Eventually they'll find something like, hey Jesse, I think it's working because we've had 5 days no reactivity.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them, great, go another week and 2 days.
Yeah.
And let me know what happens. Once we get 2 weeks of consistency where there's no reactivity, then I go, now come back for class 4. There's no point in continuing to have classes if we're still working on this problem.
Gotcha.
Okay, it's really just a waste of time and money.
Yeah.
So then once that's resolved, they go, cool, class 4, do you want to work on recall?
Yeah.
Do you want to work on place command? Like, what would you like to work on with the dog, right?
Yeah.
Then you're like, yeah, sure, let's do recall. We work on recall next. That's class 4 now. Come back class 5. What would you like to work on? Within 6 classes per dog, I'm confident enough to say that we can get the heel done. We can get recall done.
Yeah.
Some kind of stationary control like place command is feasible. The only variable with your other dog would be the reactivity.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do get some tough reactive cases that might take me the 4th to 5th class to figure it out.
Yeah.
But most of the time I get it done, if not by the 1st and 2nd class, by the 3rd class.
Okay.
Okay. And it's really just coming down to how much are you willing to push.
Yeah.
Okay. The biggest thing that holds people back is their comfort with the level.
Yeah. Excuse me, bud.
Let's say obedience-wise, your dog is doing great at 40.
Yeah.
But when it comes to reactivity, she needs like 95.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to correct her at 95, you're not going to stop the reactivity.
Yeah.
That's usually where people struggle.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a process. There's a methodology to it. There is a logical escalation to things that you'll realize, like, okay, I tried everything below 95 and it just kept happening. But the moment I hit this number, all of a sudden her reactivity got better.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps validate for you, like, okay, I'm not doing anything wrong here.
Yeah.
My dog just happens to be a tougher dog.
Yeah.
And for the reactivity needs a harsher consequence than like sit or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have I don't want to jinx it, but her reactivity isn't so persistent where it's like every single time she sees a dog she'll react like that. It's maybe like it is frequent enough for me to notice, but I do think that maybe it won't be. I'm hoping that like we can like work through it and it won't be like a difficult case, because sometimes she just like will walk past a dog no problem. Sometimes if like a dog even snarls at her, she gets a little scared and like doesn't want to approach. So I think like she's like a really manageable dog. Just like a little polishing. So I think it seems like it'll be a good fit.
Yeah, it sounds like it might be what feels frustration, I feel like you'd be more consistent. When she's reactive, have you ever noticed anything with like the other dog? Like I know like right now you said if the dog snarls at her, she won't react, she'll kind of pull away.
Yeah.
So the times that she's reactive, like what have you noticed? Like is there any pattern there? Like is it a big dog? Is it a
Normally it's a dog that like looks like they're already kind of like we'll be walking in their direction and I feel like they're kind of looking at each other already. Or if they're far across like a street and she's curious, she'll look before she can like suss them out. But I think generally they're always like very friendly before she says hi. And it doesn't matter about the size because she's scared of like small dogs that don't want to talk to her.
Sure.
Even when it comes to like, she gets excited when she sees the cats, but she gets too scared to approach the cats. And if they hiss at her, she'll bolt. Like she's very scared. So I think a lot of it's like curiosity of like, this caught my attention and I want to see if it's like safe for me to approach. But like, you know, sometimes even if a dog is friendly, another owner does not, you know, they're busy, they're on their way. But yeah, like I think it would be a lot more difficult for me to have her places if she was a little bit more like persistent about everything, like every stimuli. But I get pretty lucky with her. Like sometimes she sees pigeons and will disregard. Sometimes she'll go run after them.
I see. Yeah. So when you got that inconsistency, it just might be sometimes she's frustrated or bored.
Yeah.
Because with reactivity, like reactivity doesn't always mean aggression.
Yeah.
Like puppies can be reactive and it means that they want to play and they're throwing a tantrum.
Yeah.
Right? In some cases, in a lot of cases, the dog or puppy is insecure and they're really being reactive to scare the other dog away. You know, because they're perceiving threat.
Yeah.
Right? In other cases, we get frustration where the dog is constantly overwhelmed with stress. And when they see another dog, it puts them over threshold.
Yeah.
They become reactive, right? Like there's usually reasons why. It's not just dogs just do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
And when it's inconsistent like that, like I go, okay, I agree. It's most likely going to be easier because I get cases where it's like the owner can't even walk their dog because it's like every little thing the dog is blowing up with.
Yeah.
Both humans and dogs. So yeah, I would say I'd agree, but we won't know until we're actually working with it. But it's a step-by-step process.
Okay.
You know, so when I do get my difficult cases, if we end up at that point, like you go, well, we did do everything else and like nothing was working.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions or non-related questions?
Should I do another consultation with my other dog? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll just knock them both out with this.
Perfect.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen reactivity so much, like
Yeah.
I don't need to see it to assess it. You
Yeah.
know? Like technically speaking, the clients don't even need to bring their dogs.
Yeah.
It's nice to see them, but like I've done this for so long.
Yeah.
There's nothing new.
You just like hear what the frustrations of the owner, and you're like, okay, I think I have a general idea of like how this dog is gonna be.
Yeah, so you have options. You could do the 12, do 6 with the first dog, and then when you're ready, come back with this guy.
Yeah.
6 months is usually about when I'll start with them. Every now and then I might go a little bit earlier. If like, let's say you start noticing like, oh, like we're getting leash reactivity now. Like we could start a little bit earlier.
Okay.
You know? But even if like I get dogs that've been reactive for 3 years, and then I come in, I'm like, all right, we're still gonna fix it. Like it doesn't matter for the solution. It's just how the person thinks about it.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, 6 months is when I typically recommend it.
Cool.
And then right now, I would just do whatever you've been doing, and then just expect that nothing's gonna stick.
Okay.
Okay. Once we lay a remote collar, that's where things start sticking.
Okay.
Okay. When it comes to a very common question that we get is like, when does the e-collar go away?
Yeah.
In my book, it doesn't when you need it, right? So if you're at the park and your dog's going to be off leash, you want it.
Yeah.
Earlier you said there's things in the environment that you can't account for that's 100% true.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mentioned about like my client where that guy invited his lab and they went for the ball at the same time. She didn't invite him, right?
Yeah.
It just happened. I've had clients where they're at the park and like some kid blows up a random firework.
Yeah.
And the firework scares the dog. And the dog takes off on them. But because they have the remote collar, they have the ability to override the situation and return their dog.
Yeah.
I've also had clients with their dogs in Lincoln Park come across coyote.
Oh wow.
Yes, they're in the city. Yep.
Didn't know.
I've seen them a handful of times.
Yeah.
They're usually on the lakefront over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, coyote. You know. So in those situations, like you want to know, like if my dog tries to disobey, I have the ability to return them or whatever.
Because the way that I've thought about it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that like you can train a dog, but there's only so many, like dogs, like well-trained dogs are not meant to have kids poking at their eyes. Like they're gonna react appropriately. And like if they hear a loud noise like a firecracker, that they're not trained to just like tolerate everything and anything, and to have that extra form of communication so that they know like, all right, this crazy thing happened, but like, come back.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm very like, sometimes I see people, their puppies are like waddling around and they can't go really far, but like I get so paranoid of like things that happen to dogs where I'm like, I'm gripped onto him at all times. So I like the idea of like, yeah, maybe not in the house if we get to that point of obedience.
Oh yeah,
but,
like in the house. So like, so outside, obviously, if they're off leash, you need it. If you're taking them on any kind of extensive walk, I'd say have it on. So like my guys have been off leash trained. They're 15 years old now, but they've been off leash trained about 12 to 13 years. If I know they're going to be off leash, or if I'm going on any kind of substantial length of time of a walk, their collars will be on. Okay, and I'm not always using them. They're just simply there in case something happens. Right. So in the training, if you follow the training as I explain it, you're not using it all the time. That's what the training is for. It's simply just there in case something happens. And you go, okay, they didn't expect that. It's okay. I have the ability to regain control here. Okay. If I get a client, and it does happen, that they're constantly using it, or they'll explain things to me in a way where I feel like they're managing the problem, I'll tell them you're too low in the collar. I was like, that's why you're not making progress here, because they're trying to be nice. So for example, I have a case right now, it's a German Shepherd. I just had the third class on Saturday. After the second class, I emailed them and I said, whatever you do not lower your number below 60. Okay. They come back for class 3 this Saturday. And first thing I asked the guy, I was like, what's your collar set at? He's like, oh, I'm at 55 right now. And I said, you're below 60, right? And he's like, well, and I was like, the dog vocalizes, which I understand. We don't like it. Right? But what ended up happening is the dog needs a level where it vocalizes, but will finally stop the behavior. Ideally, I don't want the vocalization. I would like to correct the dog. They take the correction. They learn from the correction. They don't vocalize. That's ideal. That's like 99% of the time.
Come here, baby.
But every now and then, we get dogs that are a little bit more stubborn. And they have to be at a setting that makes them vocalize in order for them to respect it and stop the behavior. So we went around the walk. We went on a walk around the park. We ended up going up to 75 because they couldn't walk because the dog was still pulling them all over the place. I'm like, you guys are too low. So we hit 75, and finally we hit 75, and we did one whole big stretch here from one end to the other. The dog didn't do a thing. And they're like, oh wow, like we would love for them. I'm like, yes, but you have to do the hard stuff. You know, and I'm not just working with the dog. You know, the dog's always the easy part. It's the
people.
human.
Absolutely.
Their willingness and stuff. But everything that I do, it makes sense. So when we're going through the process, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I see why we're doing that. You know?
I very much trust like the progression because having done the training with the Doberman, I was like, no, this like makes sense. Like the steps, taking it one by one. And being able to like get them to a place where they understand like how to shut off whatever pressure's there, and you just like escalate that to a point where it's like on the e-collar, and like it feels so evil, but then I had to like use it very infrequently.
Exactly,
it's like that initial investment.
It's just the
there.
guilt thing. It's the human mind. Because we want to remember that dogs, they nip and bite each other as a form of affection, as a form of play, as a form of correction, right? A form of communication. Like they are naturally physical creatures. So for them, the e-collar isn't a bad thing. Right? It's a line of communication when taught correctly. It's but humans think that physicality is wrong. And I go, it's not wrong depending the context, right? Like, if somebody threatens me or my wife or what have you, or my family, yes, I will become physical to protect them. That doesn't make me evil. Right? But if I go around and am punching people for no reason, I go, that's a completely different thing. Right? So, the other thing that we want to account for is what's called opportunistic behavior. Are you familiar with that?
No.
So, this is also why we talk about having the collar on when you need it. Do you drive?
No.
Have you ever driven?
Yeah.
Have you ever been on the expressway?
Yes.
Did you go the speed limit?
Yes.
Okay, so you're a rule follower.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Other people were probably speeding.
Yeah.
And passing by, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like they're honking at me like I'm the
get out
one
the
doing
way.
something wrong.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I probably honked at you from time to time. Most people speed.
Yeah.
Right? And then they see a squad car, what happens?
Slow down.
Right. Why?
Yeah. Because they know that there are consequences.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's opportunistic behavior.
Oh, like only listening when like they're like, oh,
Yes.
I have this on, or
Yes.
like I see you.
Yes. It's animal nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's technically a part of survival instinct.
Yeah.
Okay? So if we take a pond of water, let's say, I think it's the alligator that's a freshwater dial, crocodile, whatever.
Yeah.
If the animals know that the threat is there, they don't drink water.
Yeah.
When they see it leave the water, they drink water.
Ah,
They
okay.
see it come back, they leave.
Yeah.
That's opportunity. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense? So here for the dog, yes, when the collar's on, instead of consequences here, I'm going to behave better.
Yeah.
When the collar's off, I can push boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? It has nothing to do with my methods as a trainer or my skills as a trainer. It's simply animal behavior.
Yeah.
Humans do it.
Yeah.
And humans know better, right?
Yeah.
When I'm driving and I'm going, you know, I just came back from a road trip a couple of days ago. We were going 100 on that highway, right? Even though it said 70 because we're trying to get back as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But then when we saw squad cars or troopers, we would slow down,
Yeah.
right? So when it's on, your dog, it should be very infrequent
Yeah.
that you're using it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're using it regularly, then that tells me something is off. We're not using it correctly or we're not at the correct setting, which I will tell you because it's very easy for me to tell.
Uh-huh.
Okay, but otherwise, it's nothing good or bad. It's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
Okay, with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And questions about any of that stuff?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like they're animals at the end of the day, and you have to like accept certain parts of them. Like, you know, even when it comes to like breed selection, or like if you have a mix, it's like, yeah, maybe some dogs are just naturally more vocal. Like that's just the way that they were bred.
German Shepherds are notoriously known
Yeah,
for being
Dobermans being like freakish about everything. Like they're literally made to be reactive, to like be a protector dog. I'm like, yeah, like there's some that you just accept, and I think in the same way, like that opportunistic kind of behavior, it's like they're animals.
You'd be surprised how often I come across clients that get a breed of dog and then are surprised they have the problem.
That's crazy. Like, oh, my husky's loud. Like that, they literally are loud.
All the time.
Wow.
I have a client right now. She's got to be like 70 years old, and she got like a 70-pound Shar-Pei something mix. I forgot what it was. And she's like, "You're 70 years old, lady. Like, why are you getting an 8-month-old dog?
Yeah.
That's like, you know, pretty much the same weight as you.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
like,
crazy.
yeah."
That's so much. Like even for me, I'm like, that sounds
it's
too
just,
crazy.
you know, this is the dog training world, you know.
Yeah.
Or like they'll get a Rottweiler and then they're like, "Oh my God, my Rottie's like super territorial." I'm like, that's legitimately what they're bred for.
Like that's their whole thing.
Yes. I had a client, believe it or not, she got a dog, and she wanted me to teach the dog to stop sniffing other dogs' butts. And I said, that's what dogs do.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to correct that or teach you how to correct that because that's literally what dogs do.
Yeah.
I was like, if you don't like that behavior, you should have gotten a different pet.
Yeah.
I've seen all sorts of
Like,
things.
I don't know, get a cat.
So,
Wow.
But yeah, I think you're on the right track. I think you're in the right headspace for everything.
Yeah.
From my assessment of your puppy right now, looks like to be a good puppy.
Yeah.
Only thing is, he hasn't relaxed yet.
Yeah. He has a really hard time settling if it's not in his crate or his X pen.
Okay.
I've started doing that. I don't know if you've seen like I'm sure you have, the relaxation protocol of just kind of like having him sit for like 3 seconds, treat him, like 5 seconds, kind of increase the duration, move around, just kind of like praise him for just remaining in like sit or laying down. But yeah, he has a hard time settling, and that's something I've definitely noticed.
Okay, so let me have you pull him in front of you.
Hi.
And then you're gonna fix your leash so it's out from under his arm.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Hi.
You're gonna shorten your leash a little bit more. Good. And what you're gonna do is the next time he gets up is you're gonna use your leash and you're gonna pull up and you're gonna push down, but you're not gonna say sit, you're not gonna praise, you're not gonna do anything but that. Okay.
Okay.
So creating
Should
relaxation.
I fix this?
Yeah, you can.
Oh,
So like here, go ahead and pull up and then
Pull up?
lightly press down on his hindquarters.
Oh.
Back here.
Your booty.
There you go. A little bit more. Like that, now relax. Okay. This is gonna get annoying because you're standing, but the next time he does that, you're gonna repeat that process.
Okay.
You're not gonna say anything. Okay. So you can do it that other way.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
Okay.
Like the treat for 3 seconds and then walk around stuff.
Yeah.
What you do is, right now we're having an interaction.
Yeah.
Okay. We've been talking for an hour. And there's been no instruction given to him. So instead, he's just doing what he wants to do, which is be inquisitive or whatever, right? But this is where I start looking at what's called, so up and then down on the butt. And then relax. Yep. Overstimulation issues, up and down on the butt. And then relax. Very good. If he lays down, it don't matter.
Okay.
Overstimulation, are you familiar with this term?
Yeah.
It's the brain's inability to turn off.
Yeah.
Okay, it's one of the most common behaviors that I see. Because human boundaries and dog boundaries are two different things. Up in your leash, bring them in, and then down on the butt. Good, and then relax. If your puppy, so that's frustration, yep, up in the leash, down on the butt.
No.
There he goes, good. And then we ignore this. As cute as it looks, right? Is if he got out of line with another dog, what would that dog do?
What do you mean?
Like, let's say he was being a puppy,
Yeah.
and the dog wanted him to stop. What would they do to stop him?
Probably like nip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, right? They would bite him. Up on the leash, down on the butt. Okay. Good. That is consequence for a dog. People tend to go, no, put the dog in the kennel, ignore the dog. That's not consequence. Okay. Pull him in, down on the butt. Yep. Yep, and then relax. Okay. That's not consequence to a dog. But that's why there's overstimulation issues. Because the client or the owner is trying to provide consequence, but dogs are physical creatures. They would bite the puppy. So if there's no physical consequence, there's nothing that really tells the puppy or dog, I have to do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So here, if I'm working with the puppy, it's like even like this is him starting to get bored and escalate, right? Yep. Yep. There he goes. Good. Right. And this is just frustration. Why is there frustration here?
Is there like too much happening and like he's just wanting to
What do you want him to do?
stay put?
And relax.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
So that's where the frustration comes in.
Okay.
Right? So here, at some point, you're going to wear him out. And the next thing you know, he stays put. He stops getting up anymore. Okay? But the reason why we're not saying sit is because sit is physical control. Put your butt down. But this isn't about physical. This is about mental. So right now, your puppy's getting frustrated. I'm seeing a little bit of early signs of overstimulation.
Yeah.
Because he's unable to settle. If I had my own personal puppy,
Yeah.
they'd be laying at my feet sleeping.
Yeah.
Because they're going, you're not doing anything right now. All you're doing is standing still. So I'm just going to default to this relaxed state.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, because you've never made him do this before. Good. And then relax. He's having a hard time with it. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I do what I want all the time for the most part, and now you're telling me to settle down, right? Like, all this is what I would expect to see. May I take him?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So all this is okay. This is just frustration. But I'm not telling him no or anything. I'm just going to repeat this process over and over. Okay. Eventually, he's going to go, Jesse's not going to give up. So I might as well just relax.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm wearing the dog or puppy out mentally. And what we're doing here is when we place them in the sitting position, we're using physical pressure. And the physical over time helps them settle down. Okay. Have you heard of those or seen those weighted blankets?
Yeah.
Yep. They help people sleep better.
Yeah.
That's pressure.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There are dogs that are trained, like let's say if there's a child that's on an autistic spectrum.
Yeah.
They'll have fits.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll have service dogs, and the service dog will be trained to sit on them. What is that?
Yeah, pressure.
Pressure.
Yeah.
Right? Pressure helps calm down.
Yeah.
Here, because he's a puppy, because this is his first experience with this, right? And he's got a lot here, right? We got a million sticks around him or whatever. He's like, I got all these options. But that's why overstimulation happens. Is what we're doing here is I'm going, you can't do that, 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 you can't step that, can't be on that, can't you on that, can't do that. So what's the only thing he can do?
Relax.
Relax.
Yeah.
Right? But it starts off like this first.
Yeah.
And eventually he just goes, okay, I don't have permission right now to do those things. And you'll start to see the puppy default to that relaxed state or passive state.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that he cannot become excited or playful. It's just that's not what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And this is probably the simplest thing that you can do that would like carry such a profound benefit is like when you're standing, you know, it's normal, like you're just letting him do whatever. But it's essentially for 45 minutes, what you reinforced was you could do whatever you want right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As opposed to we're practicing control. I don't expect them to be perfect, but I expect them over the course of, like even right now, you see how she's just sitting here between my legs,
Yeah.
right? One part of it is because I've limited length of leash here, and then I was very consistent, and the moment he started chewing on a stick, I took it away from him. So he's like, all right, I don't even get a second of reinforcement. Because the moment you allow something to happen for a second to 2 seconds to 5 seconds,
Yeah.
he goes, oh, I can get it up to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But if you remove it instantaneously, he's like, okay, that wasn't reinforced.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, let's say you're in the house, you're watching TV, you bring your puppy over, you leash him up, you sit him at your feet, right? And you're sitting at your couch watching TV, and you see the same process, and you just keep doing that. Eventually, he's gonna lay down for like 10 minutes. It might start off as 2 minutes, then it becomes 5 minutes, then it becomes 15 minutes, then it becomes 30 minutes. Next thing you know, you're watching TV, and for the whole episode, he's just sleeping.
Oh, that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's easier when you sit. This is why I crouch. It's easier
Yeah.
this way. Because when you're seated on your couch, there's only going to be so much leash. I wouldn't leave it like this because he's going to take all of it. And it's easier to correct because he's right there at your feet.
Yeah.
Right? And it'll be a little bit annoying at first, but you're going to have less stimuli.
Yeah.
Right? So you should get to it faster. But if you stick to that for half an hour,
Yeah.
you will see the gradual increase in time where he's able to sit still for a minute.
Yeah.
And if you do that once a day, you'll notice as each day passes, it becomes quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you grab the leash or whatever and you sit down, he just lays down by your feet naturally.
Yeah.
Okay? You're just setting a foundation for sometimes we're not going to do anything. Right? So in the dog training world, it's called like learning to do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like some stuff makes it a little bit too complicated. It makes it a little bit too trainy.
Yeah.
So when you're telling me about like having them sit and then 3 seconds feed and then move around 3 seconds feed, that's what I mean by too training.
Okay.
Right? Right now, what I did is expectation.
Yeah.
I expect you to be well behaved, even though I've never met you before. Right? Dogs. Are you familiar with Cesar Milan?
No.
No. I think he'd be in the realm of how your brain works.
Yeah.
Cesar Milan is the school of thought that I come from. If you Google him, you'll find stuff. He's an old Mexican guy now. But a lot of what I do is his theory. Okay. And he's very holistic. He's slip leash, human dog. He doesn't really do tools too much. If he does do tools, it's because the owner already had the tools. So he's just using what they were using to help them.
Yeah.
Right? But he does something similar where he just keeps positioning the dog, and eventually you see the dog lay down and calm down because the dog wasn't being given any options.
Yeah.
Okay? So this is something that you can do. It's a very simple exercise. It doesn't require food. It doesn't require treats. It doesn't require praise. The expectation is you're going to learn to calm down.
Yeah.
Right? So he's going to have puppy moments. He's a puppy. But it doesn't mean he can't learn to just chill for an hour to 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay? People tend to excuse things a lot for puppies. And this is why they tend to develop problems.
I just assume, okay, like, this is what puppies do. They're
It
always
is.
kind of nuts.
If you allow it.
Yeah.
That's the
Because,
difference.
like, even when I first got his exercise pen, like, when the first few days, he just could not settle in that either. But yeah, I guess it makes sense. Suddenly there's like no options. He just gets kind of like, all right, the only thing I can do is just lay down and sleep. So now oftentimes when he's in there, he'll like do stuff for 10 minutes and then just lay down. So yeah, I guess that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yes, except in this context, you're creating it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a balance. There's a benefit to the puppy learning to do it on their own, like in the pen, and there's a benefit to the puppy doing it because you told them.
Yeah.
Right? You want to have both.
Yeah.
So like my pit Lexi, I had her since she was 3 months, and in the first month, she left the breeder. She went through 3 different homes. I'm her 4th owner. Okay. Because no one could control her. She was just a wild child.
Yeah.
And then I got her, and now she's like super. Even when I had her as a puppy, she just became super chill.
Yeah.
Because I didn't allow a lot of stuff that the previous people were allowing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all about the rules and structure you give your puppy. You know, Cesar Milan is a great resource.
Yeah.
Very easy to replicate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
and it's something you could start doing. I think he even has like raising the puppy type of DVD. I'm sure you could get it for like $5 or something.
Yeah.
I watched it many years ago, and I remember liking it a lot. But it's similar to like kind of what I just did.
Yeah.
Just now.
Yeah.
Okay? Other questions?
I don't even know if this is relevant because, like, again, you know, as you said, the 6 month is kind of where things change. I noticed, you know, it's like really cute when people come and want to say hi to him. He's jumping and they're like, you know, almost like enforcing the jumping and stuff like that. Do you recommend, like, is it more important that he gets that socialization, or is it more important that, like, he kind of has that level, or like trying to withdraw him from that so like he doesn't do that? Because I know the minute, like, the same neighbors that are super excited that he's like tiny and he's jumping, in a few months
He's big.
they're not going to be super happy about it because he's not going to be as small and cute.
That's usually how that works. So it can go a couple of ways. One would be you ignore it, and then we fix it when he's 6 months.
Okay.
Right? Because we can always fix things.
Yeah.
Right? My main concern is just if you start to see, when I say like jumping on a person isn't a behavioral issue, right? It's unwanted behavior for sure, but it's not a behavioral issue. A behavioral issue is, oh, my dog bit my neighbor.
Okay.
Right? And my dog tries to bite my neighbor every time he sees my neighbor. Right?
Yeah.
That's a behavioral issue. Oh, my dog is super anxious, or my dog is super nervous, or they're super fearful of the world. Those are behavioral issues. Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff that puppies would get away with, like even overstimulation stuff.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. I have my first client of today, so overstimulated, constant barking, nonstop, inside, outside.
Yeah.
We did one class, problem went away.
Yeah.
Right? Is that when discipline comes in and it's done correctly, progress is very quick. The only time progress isn't quick is when I'm dealing with a legitimate behavioral problem.
Yeah.
It's not as straightforward. Most dogs fall underneath the realm of frustration and overstimulation stuff. Every now and then I get a case where it's like, okay, this dog is screwed up. We got some work to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
For the trainings, do you normally do them here? Or?
Yeah, pending the season.
Okay.
So like if you started with your other dogs sooner, like now-ish, we would be training here.
Okay.
This is the busiest park in Chicago.
Yeah.
We see everything from rollerbladers, skateboarders, dogs, baseball games or whatever.
Yeah.
It also has lots of trees here, so we get plenty of shade.
Yeah.
And most of my clientele from when I first started my business is this area. So we just picked this park because it was where everybody was.
Yeah.
And then it worked really well, so we just continue to work here.
Okay.
Otherwise, the other place that I meet at is at my facility, which is near the West Loop.
Yeah.
And in the wintertime or during inclement weather, we also meet at my facility. So this way I don't get, my schedule doesn't get backed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, for the most part,
Great.
we train here during the summertime, fall time, weather pending, and then once it gets too cold or too rainy. The other thing is I'm here all day.
Yeah.
So there's a bathroom here conveniently.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Smart.
that's why I do it here.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, why can't Jesse, do it? And I'm like, there's no bathroom.
There's
I'm
no
here for
bathroom,
like 10 hours
yeah.
sometimes. There's no bathroom.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
yeah.
I'm wondering if nothing's coming to mind in terms of questions. I feel like even this has just been helpful and like giving me some sort of like goal to go for. I think especially with the other dog, I just almost was like, maybe this isn't in the cards for her and like she could just kind of exist. But that I know makes her like have a restricted life too. And so it's nice to know that like this is a possible and realistic goal for them.
Yeah. I always shoot for 110%.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get 110. You're always going to get less.
Yeah.
But if I only shoot for 80%, then I'm going to get like 60%. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So I always push my clients as much as possible.
Yeah.
And typically humans' ceilings are lower.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately in the dog training world, most dog trainers don't know what they're doing. Okay. I have 2 dogs right now where both clients spent 4 dogs right now that spent $4,000 to $5,000 on their dogs on a 4-week board and train program.
Yeah.
And all the dogs are still all screwed up.
Yeah.
So now I'm retraining them again.
Yeah.
Okay. It's unfortunate, but that's just how it is. There's trainers that can teach obedience for sure, but obedience is different from behavior. And regardless, if you're going to own a dog, you need to always understand behavior because it's going to come up at one point or another in life. Okay. So I do both.
Okay.
I do both behavior and obedience, but because of that, that's why I'm so good, because I
Yeah.
understand everything, whether it's aggression or it's anxiety or it's fear or it's nervousness.
Yeah.
Like at some point, this puppy's going to experience fear.
Yeah.
At some point, it's going to experience nervousness, right?
Yeah.
Is if you don't know how to navigate that correctly, potentially, now we create a behavioral issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like let's say for example, this has happened to people before. You're walking with your puppy.
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 months old. Some random dog gets off leash, attacks your puppy.
Yeah.
Like a light switch, the next day they're aggressive.
Yeah.
Like that happens. So then the client looks for a trainer, they find me, they tell me what happened. I go, yeah, that attack was stressed. Now the dog thinks every dog is a threat,
Yeah.
right? So now we have to rein that in, get the dog in a good headspace,
Yeah.
and then if they were social, teach them how to trust again,
Uh-huh.
right? Now it doesn't mean that they'll trust every dog, but they'll have the capacity to have a social life again.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you need to know how to do both in order to have a dog in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, like to have a horse, like people go to, like they study, you know, they have a teacher and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But dogs, you can just go pay $25, adopt a dog, and there you go.
Yep.
Right?
And
There's
that
no
ends up being
class.
like the biggest liability ever
Yeah.
out in public and just in your personal
Yeah.
life.
It happens.
Yeah.
I've had clients that they go and they rescue a dog, and then it bites someone,
Yeah.
and then the rescue's like, oh yeah, like the dog has issues, but nobody told them.
Yeah.
But then the human feels guilty because they don't want to give up the dog. You know, I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of crazy stuff.
Before like my first experience trying to rescue a dog, the only requirement that I put on my form is that like aggression is something that it's like very challenging for me because I was bit by a dog as a child. So like even like when I see a dog and I know that they're like pretty gentle and like sense aggression, I'll get like a little nervous. And they let me adopt this like a big dog. She was also a Doberman. I love the breed. I just realized that like maybe with the dogs that I have now, it's just not a good fit. But this was before any of them. And this was, and I've like had partners who had reactive dogs. I've never experienced reactivity like this where even like when she started to tense up on a stroller is when I like, that really set in of, like she doesn't know that this isn't like an animal or thing that's threatening her, but like that's on me. And like I got a personal trainer, but I ended up going to a different, this was like my first time looking into trainers and they had a very like, I guess like granola like approach in terms of only positive reinforcement, which just wasn't effective for her. And even the trainer said, I feel like she should reside in like a suburb. So I ended up working with the shelter again and being like, hey, you know, like this was a trainer. I worked with her. She's looked at her. She thinks that she should be on like a Prozac level of anxiety medication and she shouldn't be like in a city like this. And so like, yeah, it gets kind of frustrating that it's like so easy to get a dog and there's like so many consequences that can come from it. What, like it's even for her own safety, like if she starts to fight, like she's at risk too. Everyone's at risk. So yeah, that becomes like pretty scary.
I've had a lot of clients where they'll rescue a dog and the rescue will make them sign a waiver that says they won't use like aversive methods like remote collar or tongue collar.
Yeah.
But the dog will be like super reactive or something.
Yeah.
So then they're like, you know, what do we do? I'm like, they can't do anything.
They can't.
Like the dog is property. Like they're not gonna come and repo your dog.
Yeah.
You know?
And
it's a mind game.
Yeah, and it's like it's either, you know, using this level of enforcement or they bite someone and get put down. Or they get sent back to a shelter and get put down. Or like something, you know, and like is that really the more humane option?
I know.
Like it's so interesting.
When I get flack for that stuff, so I developed my skills volunteering at a humane society in Texas.
Yeah.
I would literally go Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 hours every day.
Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't have a job at the time. And then I lied to them and I told them that I was a dog trainer.
Yeah.
Because they had dogs labeled as human aggressive and they wouldn't let me handle them. And I was like, oh, I'm a dog trainer. They're like, oh, okay. They're like, sure. Like, but if you get bit, that's on you. I was like, all right, no problem. I never got bit. Never had an issue with the dog being aggressive towards me. And it was funny because I'd be walking a dog, like, oh man, did he try to bite you? I was like, no, it was completely fine. You know, they're like, oh, he tried to bite me. And I had no issue with any of the dogs.
Yeah.
But they had like, let's say 3 rows of 20 kennels. And pit bulls were very popular down there for dog fighting. And I remember one day I went there and like all the kennels were full and there was like 30 to 40 pitties, right? I came back the next day and they had like 5 pitties left. So within that 24-hour period, I know they didn't get adopted.
Yeah.
They got put down, right? And I would see dogs that would have a slip because they would have the slip off while they returned.
Yeah.
And like there would be like won't potty train, right? And then you come back and then they're put down.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't. Whoever had them didn't have patience to potty train them. So I tell people, I was like, I do what I do to the extent I do it because I look at my job as I got to keep this dog in the home.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know chances are if this dog is surrendered or returned or whatever, it's going to be put down.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I take what I do very seriously because I've seen dogs be returned and euthanized for very stupid and mundane reasons.
Yeah.
But the general public doesn't know that.
Yeah.
You know? So, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's tough.
So here, from what I can see, only thing would be overstimulation stuff, not uncommon, but you can already start working on it with what I showed you. It's very simple.
Yeah, I mean, he's already just like
like
staying
he's
put
still
a good
wanting to
amount.
chew, but that's just frustration stuff.
Yeah.
I have consults where I have the owner do the same thing, and then
Yeah.
you see the dog just gradually calm down.
Yeah.
So I'll see if I can find one and then have Tina send it to you to
Yeah.
give you a reference. Otherwise, mull it over. There's no rush. Think what you'd like to do. And then if you're wanting to do both dogs and all that stuff, you know, you have the 12-class program.
Yeah.
You know, would help you save money long term. Otherwise, if you did 6, I don't care. It's just when you if you buy another 6 for this guy, it would be a separate program.
Yeah.
And then she'll fill you in with all the information and stuff. And then she'll send you the information as well for the system that I would recommend.
Perfect.
Where it will be one dog, one remote to both dogs.
Okay.
Okay.
I just have one quick question. I normally train them by just using the verbal cue yes, and then also good for like more durational stuff. Should I like go over to a clicker since?
No, you're fine with that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I use yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clicker.
Great.
The reason why trainers try to deter people from using words is people tend to continue the conversation. Yes, you're such a good boy.
Yeah.
Right? You did a good job. So now there's like 20 words, and the dog's like, which one of those words matters?
Yeah, okay.
Right? That's the issue. Clicker removes that.
Yeah.
Okay. So me, I'm a trainer. I'm good with just yes.
Okay.
And every now and then I might say good dog.
Yeah.
But I don't go on with this huge sentence, which a lot of people tend to do.
Gotcha.
Right? But yes, your verbal cue is just the same as a clicker.
Okay. I just don't carry a clicker around very often. I forget it all the time.
Yeah, you got your leash, you got your puppy, you got your treat bag, right? It's less to think about if you just go with verbal cues.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
Anything else?
No, this was so great meeting you. I'm really excited to work with you, and yeah.
I'll grab your mic before you go.
Perfect.